I'm in my favorite place today. I am outside and it is so beautiful. With my tree friends and my friends in nature. So welcome, my friends. Welcome back to the Achieve Intentional Transformation podcast. I'm your friend and the host, Dr. Leonie H. Mattison. And it is always a blessing to be on top of the earth with all of you. Thank you. If this is your first time listening, I want to offer a sincere welcome. Yes, you are in the right place, and I am grateful that you're here. So thank you. Thanks for joining us. This podcast is for people carrying real responsibility in their homes, their work, their communities, and their leadership roles. I'm talking about people who are capable, thoughtful, and often relied on. People who are navigating disruption or a painful transition, and you want to move through this season of your life with integrity, not just endurance. I'm also talking to organizations and communities as well. If you have been listening for a while, welcome back. You already know the pace we keep here. We do not rush, we do not perform, and we do not pretend that we're something else that we're not. However, we do slow down enough to hear what is true and we build from there. So again, I'm out in nature. It's just such a beautiful day, such a beautiful day. This 7-part series is built around the T.H.R.E.A.D system, a 6-step discipline for intentional transformation in life and leadership. I created this to help individuals, teams, and organizations to strengthen their inner life and their external systems so transformation lasts and so leadership remains sustainable. Now, T.H.R.E.A.D, T-H-R-E-A-D stands for Think Deeply, Harvest Wisdom, Release Patterns, Enlist Allies, Adopt Change, and Design Wholeness. My aim and my goal has been that each episode builds on the last. But if you're new, you can still receive something meaningful today. I will orient you as we go. And you can also check my website for those episodes as well. And here is why this episode today matters. Many leaders can carry disruption for a very long season. The question, though, is whether you carry it without losing yourself, your health, your relationships, and your sense of purpose. That is why what we're doing matters so much more today than it has ever mattered before. Before we dive into the episode, let me start here. If you're listening to episode 5, you have already stayed with the work long enough to become someone new inside the disruption you're navigating instead of just simply surviving your way through it. That has been my heart posture for all of you. And if you're listening for the first time, I think it's important to briefly orient and ground you in the arc of the T.H.R.E.A.D system and how it's structured. I'm going to take you back to just a quick recap. In episode 1, we named disruption as an embodied experience, how it changes our breathing, sleep, our patience, and our pace. We talk about how disruption often shows up in the body before we have language for it. In episode 2, we practiced the first stage, which is to think deeply, slowing the mind down enough to lead from discernment rather than urgency. In episode 3, we moved into harvest wisdom. Because disruption always reveals something. It reveals what we default to when we're under pressure. It also reveals what we fear and what we keep carrying alone. And in episode 4, we entered release patterns. Because awareness is powerful, but completion is what changes life. When we begin releasing what has completed, and what has completed its purpose, energy and clarity can begin to circulate. Release created capacity. Now, here is the question that matters today. Are you ready? My question for us is, what will you do with the space that you've just created? You've let something go. What will you do with that space? Because space does not stay neutral. Space becomes filled. And if we do not fill it with what strengthens us, pressure will fill it with what drains us. Take a moment and consider this. What is draining your energy right now? Not the whole story, just the main place you feel the leak. That brings us to the fourth stitch of the thread system, and that is to enlist allies. This episode is for the leader who has been carrying responsibility with quiet strength, and you are ready to build the support system that you need with intentionality. Now, if you've been carrying a lot alone, it's not because you're failing. It's because you're growing into the leader your soul has been preparing you to become. And so now you need the support system to help you to get there. Before we go further, it helps to name what the thread sequence is actually doing as you are practicing intentional transformation. The first three steps, which are to think deeply, harvest wisdom, and release patterns, are primarily internal disciplines. They stabilize perception, pace, and patterning, especially when you're under pressure. Those three steps, they work at the level where disruption is first registered, whether it's in your breath, your posture, attention, and even in your threat response. And so this is why those three steps comes first. I say that because when the internal system is dysregulated, leaders often compensate externally through speed, control, overcommunication, restructuring, or even repeated pivots. Now, those moves can feel decisive in the moment while quietly degrading trust, morale, and judgment over time. So I want you to think about that for a moment. Now, the next three steps, enlist allies, adopt change, and design wholeness, form an external sequence. They translate internal clarity into relational capacity, operating discipline, and sustainable design. And what I mean by that, the work moves from the inner regulation to systems configuration, so transformation becomes structural. And also so that it lasts and you're not repeating the same processes over and over again or circulating the same disruption, right? Let's be honest for a moment. A defining feature of modern leadership culture is the overvaluation of self-sufficiency. And I say that because many of you learned early that being capable meant being contained. Yes, and I'm guilty of that as well. You handle the it. You know how to figure it out. You absorb pressure without letting it show. You keep the system stable. We're good at that. That's what we're trying to do as leaders. And yes, that strength can be rewarded until the day it becomes a constraint. My friends, no complex system, whether biological, ecological, or organizational, maintains stability through isolated control. Stability emerges through distributed regulation. And we can feel this in our own bodies. Yes, we breathe differently in the presence of safety. Our shoulders drop before our mind can explain why. And the body knows what the breath tries to negotiate. I feel a sense of difference when I'm out in nature. And I believe that organizations regulate through connection to healthy institutions manage complexity through feedback loops and shared sense making. And that is because when information circulate, errors reduces, but when it can't, errors grow. And when only one person is allowed to tell the truth, reality gets distorted. When everything funnels upward, leaders become saturated and the culture becomes anxious. So if you have been tired in a way sleep does not fix, irritated in a way you do not recognize, or you're stuck in a loop where you keep revisiting the same decisions, it may not be because you lack discipline. It may be because the load is overly concentrated. And today is about how do you distribute it without becoming overburdened, but how do you distribute it with wisdom? There's a line that has endured for a reason, and I have said it many times by John Donne wrote, "No man is an island in a season marked by illness, loss, and sobering awareness of human dependency." And I believe he knew through lived experience that suffering does not only test strength, it reveals connection. And so does leadership. No man is an island and no man stands alone. Iron sharpens iron. If you insist on carrying everything alone, my friends, your world will eventually narrow. Your judgment will thin and your spirit will tire. So build with others. Let support become a structure, not a last resort. You were never created or called into life and leadership to metabolize complexity alone. No, you weren't. And so we're going to talk about allies as a functional requirement for an intentional life and intentional leadership. Allies are frequently misunderstood, so let's make this practical. From a leadership and system standpoint, I believe that ally serves three essential functions. And I say this because of my own experience, so please understand that I may be projecting. I believe they're good at load distribution, preventing cognitive and emotional saturation. And number two, they help us to signal correction, identifying our blind spots. And number three, they're like decision stabilizers, helping us to distinguish urgency from importance. That is what I found in allyship. I also know that in healthy systems, no single element bears the full burden of sensing, interpreting, and responding to change. In healthy systems, functions are shared, information circulates, and correction happens earlier while choices are still less expensive and relationships are still intact. I have found that without allies, leaders often compensate by increasing control, speed, or isolation. And those responses can feel productive, yet they narrow your perception and degrade your judgment over time. So now I want to bring this inward. Here is the question for today. Who do you need to support you in becoming the person you envisioned in episode 2, and that person you envisioned beyond the disruption that you are currently navigating right now? You know, the disruption I mean. That disruption that you keep carrying quietly. The one that returns when the room gets silent. The one that makes you think, I can handle this disruption, but I do not want to keep handling the disruption this way. I'm going to always remind you to remember that version of you we began to access in episode 2, Think Deeply. I'm talking about that version who leads with clarity instead of bracing. That version who does not over-explain to earn safety. The version of you who trusts your own pace and your values. That version who is grounded, honest, and decisive without becoming hardened. My friends, you will not become that person through private effort alone. No man is an island and no man stands alone. You become that person through intentional community. Not noise, not access, not proximity. Community. And I'm talking about a support system that holds you to what is true, that helps you to become the person that you envision. I want to offer you a small practice that helps you to translate this into action today. If you can open a note app or just hold this in your mind as you're listening, right? Write one sentence that says something like, the place I keep getting stuck is, finish that sentence. Just finish it with one honest line. Not asking you to write a book today. Then write this sentence. The kind of support I need for this is, go ahead and finish that. And do not write a person yet. Just write the function, right? Is it truth that you need? Regulation, strategy, boundaries, sponsorship, implementation, spiritual covering, accountability. Write it in. Just write it down. Or just speak it out loudly or just rehearse it in your mind, because this is a meaningful shift. You stop asking, who will understand me? And I want you to shift that to start asking, what kind of support does this season of my life and leadership requires? Now, I want to widen our definition of ally, because many leaders are building from the inside out. Inner allies within us, and we're going to talk about external allies around us, and allies above us, and allies who are for us. So you can view this as like a coordinating cross or a point. Now, allies within you. These are internal supports that you can access on demand. Many leaders have internal allies, but they have not named them, strengthened them, or learned how to consult them in real time. So under pressure, the loudest voice usually wins. Often the loudest voice is fear, wearing the language of urgency. So I want us to start tapping into our internal allies, which includes your convictions, your wise self, your future self, your values, your body's truth, and your faith. For many of you, one of the most steady internal allies, especially for those who are in the faith, is the Holy Spirit within you. The Holy Spirit guides you into truth. It corrects you. It helps you to deal with fear from a place of strength. And also, when you're feeling lonely, he reminds you that he's there. So a simpler way to activate your internal ally is to ask, what would my wise self say if fear did not get a vote? What will your wise self say if fear didn't get a vote? Let's talk about allies around you. These are relational supports in your day-to-day life. Not everyone around you is an ally. Some are familiar, while others are connected to your role. Some benefit from your overfunctioning as well. Yes, they do. However, an ally is someone whose presence strengthens your clarity and supports your integrity, not just your comfort. Sometimes the ally around you is also a practice. For me, it's nature, because nature can be an ally. It teaches regulation, release, and renewal. That is what I've found. And sometimes the most supportive thing you can do is give your body what it needs so your mind can return to steadiness. That's why I love being out in nature. Yes, yes. Now, allies above you. These are covering and counsel. I'm talking about mentors, elders, coaches, spiritual leaders, seasoned executives, wise advisors, people who can see further than your current horizon. These are the people who help you to interpret complexity, they help you see the long arc, and they strengthen your discernment when you are tired. If you do not currently have allies above you, that is not shame. It is information, and it tells you where to build next. Okay, and in this community, we have all of those allies here, so please tap into that. Next is allies who are for you. These are advocates. I'm talking about people who support you even when you are not in the room. They open doors, they protect your name, they recommend you without manipulation, they intercede for you, they hold hope for you when you are weary. And sometimes you do not know who your allies for you are yet. But when you begin building support intentionally, you often discover that you're not alone as you felt. So please hear this clearly. Enlisting allies is not about collecting people. No. Enlisting allies is about building a life and leadership ecology that can hold your responsibility without crushing your nervous system. Now, I think it's important that I talk about why leaders resist enlisting allies and individuals and teams as well. Resistance to allies is rarely about arrogance. I found that it's usually about adaptation. And what I mean by that, if your earlier success depended on self-containment, rapid problem solving, or emotional insulation, enlisting allies and others can feel inefficient or even destabilizing. And I've seen where many leaders learn, sometimes very early, that needing support led to disappointment and that visibility carried risk. They also learned that asking invited judgment. So the psyche says, stay contained. But here's the reality. Conditions do change. Patterns that once protected you in a high-pressure environment often becomes a liability as complexity increases. And I say that because what worked when problems were bounded fails when systems become interdependent. My friends, at this stage, continued self-reliance signals a misalignment between leadership behavior and systems demand. If you want a different outcome, you will need a different system. And we know that instinctively and intuitively. Now, let's make this practical. I'm going to offer you a simple process you can use to enlist allies with clarity and clear. It's a process that I found to be very helpful. Step 1. Name the load. What is the specific pressure you're carrying that is concentrating on you? Name it in one sentence. Step 2. Name the function. What kind of support would distribute that load? Is it regulation, truth, strategy, challenge, boundaries, sponsorship, implementation, spiritual covering, advocacy? Name it. Step 3, choose the right person for the function, not the closest person, not the most available person, the right person. And in another episode, I'll give you some pointers on different types of allies. Okay, so hang tight. But for now, I want you to ask yourself, do they have maturity to tell the truth with care? Do they have steadiness to hold what I share without using that information against me? Do they have the capacity to support me without making it about them? So ask yourself those questions. Step 4, make the ask precise. Now here's a simple script that you can use today. Just choose the one that matches the function that you just need. The script could go something like, when you're reaching out to your allies, I need one honest conversation. Or what am I not seeing in this situation? Or I have been carrying a lot. Can we talk for 10 minutes so I can settle my thinking before I make a decision? Or you may say something like, I want you to pressure test my plan. I do that a lot. Or I do not need reassurance. I need better questions. Or I just need someone to listen. Or I keep noticing a pattern. Can you help me connect what I am doing now to what it will produce over time? And I know that's very hard to be honest about. Or you may say something like, I'm setting a boundary and pressure is trying to reopen it. Can you help me hold the line for the next, 30 days? Or I'm ready for my next level. What would you be willing to connect me to? It would, maybe one person, or an opportunity that could expand my value. Okay. Another way of reaching out is when you reach out to say, I respect your wisdom. Could I have 15 minutes of your counsel on one decision I am navigating right now? I will drop those script points in the show notes so that you can review them and determine which ones will make, will be of value to you, will make the most sense. Now, step 5, set the agreement. I want you to define purpose, frequency, your boundaries, and closure. This protects trust between you and your ally. Step 6, practice reciprocity. Reciprocity does not mean equal, it means honor. And so you can ask your ally, thank you. What would be supportive for you in this season? We always appreciate that from our, allies. And this is how alliances last, right? So review those steps. I will post them in the show notes as well. Okay. When allies are properly integrated in your life and leadership system, several things shift, my friends. I'm talking about decision quality improves under pressure. Problem surfaces earlier and remains smaller. You spend less energy managing perception and more energy shaping your direction. That's the power of allyship. Also, you'll find that your nervous system steadies, which improves how people experience you. Another benefit is that your life and leadership becomes more sustainable because pressure is metabolized across the system rather than concentrated on one individual, which is why I'm going to offer you a list of allies that you can tap into. And here's the quiet payoff. When you stop carrying everything alone, you stop needing to defend everything. Think about that. When you're not carrying everything alone, you listen differently, You respond with steadiness. You rest without guilt. You move with more clarity. Those are some of the payoffs, my friends. This is not a personality shift at all. Enlisting allies is a systems shift. Across the 4 episodes, Think Deeply, Harvest Wisdom, Release Patterns, and now Enlist Allies, a pattern has emerged. Disruption have a way of overwhelming leaders and even systems, but clarity returns when load is distributed, patterns are completed, and feedback is restored. So to recap, you acknowledge disruption as embodied reality. You slowed cognition to preserve judgment. You extracted insight rather than rushing past the lesson. You, my friend, release patterns that no longer serve who you are becoming. And today, you started enlisting allies in how those gains are protected. Now, I want to leave you with one practice. Create a simple ally map with 4 headings. 1, allies within me. 2, allies around me. 3, allies above me. And 4, allies for me. Write one name or one practice under each. Then answer this question. What is the first conversation I need to have with that ally based on the situation I'm navigating? Not 5, not 10, 1. And I say that because transformation becomes real, my friends, through the next clear action. One more deep breath. In the next episode, we will examine adopt change, how leaders move forward without creating the very conditions that depleted capacity in the first place. For now, I have one more question for you that I need you to consider. Just one more question. I think that's it for today. Who do you need to support you in becoming the person you envisioned beyond the disruption you are navigating? And what role do they play in your leadership system? That's all the questions I have for today. I am Dr. Leonie H. Matheson, and this is the Achieve Intentional Transformation podcast. I'm hopefully going to be doing more outside because I just love being out here. So until next time, remember, my friends, intentional leadership is a system capability. So as you move through your day, continue to be who you're called to be. Have a wonderful day, my friends. Take care now.